hangar deck of the Pride of the Emperor stretches into shadow, its marble floors reflecting the soft glow of lumens that hang like captured stars from the distant ceiling. Servitors move in synchronized patterns across the vast space, their mechanical limbs adjusting cargo restraints and calibrating weapon systems with the mindless precision that defines their existence. The smell of sacred oils mingles with sterile, recycled air, and somewhere in the distance a remembrance's melody drifts through the ventilation systems, the notes of some ancient Terran composition finding their way into every corner of the vessel. This is the flagship of the Third Legion. This is the heart of the Emperor's children. The weight of Crusade-era power armor settles across ceramite-clad shoulders, each joint and servo responding with the fluid grace that comes from decades of constant warfare. Purple and gold catch the light with every movement, the colors of nobility, the colors of perfection, the colors bestowed upon the Third Legion by the master of mankind himself. Upon the chest plate, worked in finest gold and set with amethyst, rests the Palatine Aquila, the Emperor's own symbol, granted to no other legion in all the Imperium. To wear this symbol is to carry the weight of expectation that no mortal could bear. To wear this symbol is to know that every action, every word, every thought must strive toward an excellence that others cannot comprehend. The Third Legion does not simply wage war. The Third Legion perfects it. Memory drifts backward through the decades, past countless campaigns and compliance actions, past the blood of 100 Xeno species and the surrender of 1,000 human worlds. Memory settles upon Chemos, upon the dying world where everything began, where a child was found in a crater of light and raised to reshape a civilization. Chemos had been a world without hope. Its people labored in the vapor mines and synthesis plants, working every waking hour to maintain the failing machinery that kept their species alive. The binary stars that warmed Chemos provided only twilight, never true day, and the planet's resources had been stripped nearly to exhaustion by the time the long night ended. There was no art on Chemos. There was no music, no poetry, no sculpture. There was only survival, measured in the output of factories and the rationing of protein paste. Into this grey existence came Fulgrim. The Primarch's arrival transformed Chemos in ways that statistical records cannot capture. Within 50 years, a world on the edge of extinction had become a center of production and culture. Fulgrim did not simply optimize the mining operations and repair the ancient machinery. He taught the Chemosians to dream again. He showed them that efficiency and beauty were not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of the same drive toward perfection. Under his rule, artisans emerged from the workforce, their talents finally given space to flourish. Musicians composed symphonies to accompany the rhythm of the factories. Sculptors carved monuments from the slag heaps that had once been eyesores. When the Emperor came to Chemos, Fulgrim knelt before his father without hesitation. The Primarch had always known, somehow, that he was meant for something greater than a single world. He'd been preparing himself and his people for this moment of reunion. The Emperor looked upon his son and saw perfection achieved against impossible odds. He named Fulgrim the Phoenician after the ancient Terran myth of the bird that rises, renewed from its own ashes. It was a fitting title for a being who had raised a dying world to golden prosperity. But the legion that Fulgrim inherited was no golden phoenix. It was a guttering flame on the edge of extinction. The Third Legion had suffered catastrophe, a genetic blight, engineered by enemies of the Imperium, had destroyed their gene seed reserves on Terra itself. While other legions grew to tens of thousands, the Emperor's children had withered to barely 200 battle brothers. Each survivor carried the weight of companies that had perished, their banners held high in memory of brothers who would never be replaced. 200 warriors, 200 sons of the Emperor, marked for greatness, yet reduced to a fraction of their intended strength. Fulgrim addressed those survivors in the great hall of the Legion's fortress on Terra. The words he spoke that day would echo through 10,000 years of history, though none who heard them could have known the dark places where that echo would eventually lead. The Primarch declared that they were the Emperor's children, and that they would not fail. He declared that only through imperfection could they disappoint their father. He declared that every warrior present would strive for an excellence that would shame the mightiest deeds of their brother legions. The Emperor himself was moved by these words. By imperial edict, he formally named the Third Legion the Emperor's Children. The only legion to bear that sacred title, he granted them the right to wear the Palatine Aquila upon their armor, his own personal symbol, an honor shared with no other warriors in the Imperium. For decades, the Emperor's children rebuilt. Fulgrim's genome provided the template that the Blight had destroyed, and new generations of Astartes rose to fill the depleted ranks. The screening process was stringent, the rejection rate astronomical, but those who passed the trials and survived the implantation emerged as warriors without peer. Recruits came from Terra and from Chemos, their diverse origins unified by the singular purpose that Fulgrim instilled in every one of his sons. During this period of rebuilding, the small Emperor's Children contingent fought alongside the Lunar Wolves under Horus Lupercal. The two legions became oath brothers, their primarchs forming a bond of genuine friendship and mutual respect. Where the Lunar Wolves were direct and brutal in their approach to warfare, the Emperor's Children were flexible and subtle. Where Horus was swift and intuitive, Fulgrim was patient and considered. Together, they brought world after world into compliance, each victory adding to the legend of both legions. Horus himself praised the Third Legion as the living embodiment of everything the legion's Astartes aspired to be. Coming from the War Master-to-be, there could be no higher compliment. When the Emperor's children finally reached sufficient strength for independent operations, Fulgrim took command of the 28th Expeditionary Fleet and set forth to write his own legend among the stars. The Pride of the Emperor served as his flagship, a vessel constructed to impossibly exacting specifications that had taken twice as long to build as comparable ships. Its triumphal way featured marble walls and onyx columns inscribed with battle honors. Statues of Legion heroes stood in alcoves of worked gold. Gilt-framed artwork adorned every suitable surface. The ship was a statement of intent. The Emperor's children would not merely conquer, they would elevate conquest to an art form. Around you, the hangar deck continues its eternal rhythms of preparation and maintenance. Brothers in purple and gold move through their duties with the unconscious grace that marks every action of the Third Legion. There is pride in every step they take, pride in every weapon they clean, pride in every word they speak. This pride is not arrogance, not yet. This pride is the natural confidence of warriors who know their own excellence and strive always to exceed it. But pride, as the ancient texts warn, goes before a fall, and the fall of the Emperor's children will be the greatest tragedy in the history of the Imperium. The stratagem of the Pride of the Emperor hums with activity as hololithic displays cast their pale blue light across the assembled officers. Star charts rotate slowly in the air, marking the positions of compliant worlds, contested systems, and the vast darkness that remains to be illuminated by Imperial truth. The 28th Expeditionary Fleet has carved a path of glory across this sector, each campaign adding new honors to the Legion's battle standards. Lord Commander Eidolon stands at the primary tactical display, his ornate armor catching the light with every subtle movement. As the first Astartes personally promoted to company command by Fulgrim himself, Eidolon embodies the Legion's pursuit of perfection in all its aspects. His record in siege warfare and rapid assault operations is unmatched among the Emperor's children. His dedication to the Primarch borders on the devotional, a father-son bond that defines his every action and decision. Yet there is something in Eidolon's bearing that unsettles those with eyes to see. His arrogance, while common enough among the Third Legion, carries an edge that cuts deeper than mere confidence. He views other legions with barely concealed contempt, their methods crude and their achievements pedestrian in comparison to the Emperor's children. Even his own brothers sometimes fall short of his exacting standards, their efforts dismissed with cutting remarks that leave lasting wounds. This arrogance will serve Eidolon well in the darkness to come. It will make him the perfect vessel for corruption, his pride the doorway through which chaos will enter the Third Legion. But that darkness remains distant, a shadow on a horizon that no one is yet looking toward. First Captain Julius Caesaron commands the first company from within his Terminator armor, the finest warriors of the Legion answering to his word. Unlike Eidolon, Caesaron carries his excellence with grace rather than arrogance. He appreciates the fine arts, especially poetry, and his quarters aboard the Pride of the Emperor contain a library of works from 100 compliant worlds. His relationship with Fulgrim is genuinely paternal, marked by mutual affection and respect that transcends the formal bonds of Primarch and Jensen. Captain Solomon Demeter leads the second company with a style that sets him apart from his brothers. Where other Emperor's children officers cultivate elaborate personas and theatrical flourishes, Demeter is straightforward and practical. His individualism and self-reliance make him something of an outlier within the Legion's culture of collective excellence. Some whisper that he lacks the proper spirit of the Third Legion, that his reasonable nature marks him as somehow lesser than his more flamboyant brothers. These whispers will prove tragically ironic. When corruption claims the Emperor's children, it will be Demeter's independence that allows him to see clearly, while others fall blind to their own damnation. Captain Saul Tarvitz of the 10th Company watches the strategic briefing with quiet attention, his mind cataloguing every detail for later analysis. Tarvitz has earned the informal title of the Honor of the Legion, his conduct in battle and peace alike exemplifying the finest traditions of the Emperor's children. His friendship with Lunar Wolves, Captain Tarek Torgadon, forged during the long decades of joint operations, represents the bonds that unite the Legiones Astartes across the divisions of gene line and heraldry. These bonds will be tested. These bonds will be broken. And when they break, Tarvitz will be the first to warn his brothers of the betrayal that comes for them all. Among the officers, one figure draws particular attention. Lucius, captain of the 13th Company, has never been bested in single combat during the entirety of the Great Crusade. His skill with a blade surpasses even that of the Legion's most renowned swordsman, his speed and precision making him nearly untouchable in the dueling circles that the Emperor's children favor. Yet for all his martial excellence, there is something fundamentally wrong with Lucius, a flaw in his character that no amount of training can correct. Lucius is vain beyond measure, obsessed with his own appearance and reputation to the exclusion of all else. When other officers praised his striking features, calling him beautiful, Lucius reacted not with gratitude but with fury. He carved his own face with ritual scars, mutilating the beauty that others admired, determined that his victories would be attributed to skill alone rather than any natural advantage. The scars twist his features into a permanent grimace, a mask of self-inflicted suffering that hints at the deeper darkness within his soul. This vanity, this obsessive need for recognition and supremacy, will eventually earn Lucius the attention of powers far darker than any mortal enemy. But for now, he is simply another captain among many, his flaws dismissed as eccentricities common to the Emperor's children temperament. The strategium falls silent as Fulgrim himself enters through the primary doors. The Primarch moves with a grace that no human could replicate, each step a study in controlled perfection. His features are impossibly beautiful, the genetic template from which all Emperor's children derive their own enhanced appearance. White hair frames a face that seems carved from marble, and his eyes hold depths that speak of intelligence and ambition in equal measure. At Fulgrim's side hangs a sword of exquisite craftsmanship, its blade worked with flowing script that catches the light in ways that draw the eye and hold it. This weapon was not forged in the armories of the Imperium. Its origins lie elsewhere, in a place of alien corruption that the Emperor's children conquered, but did not truly defeat. The Primarch surveys his officers, his gaze touching each warrior in turn, and those touched by that gaze feel the weight of expectation settle upon them like a physical force. To disappoint Fulgrim is unthinkable. To fail to meet his standards is to fail the Emperor himself. This pressure drives the Emperor's children to heights of achievement that other legions cannot match, but it also leaves no room for the admission of weakness or doubt. Fulgrim speaks of the campaign ahead, of the worlds that await compliance, and the glory that will accrue to those who perform their duties with excellence. His words are precisely chosen, each phrase designed to inspire and motivate, to stoke the fires of ambition that burn within every warrior present. Yet there is something different about the Primarch. Something subtle has changed since the campaign on Leren, since he claimed that beautiful sword from the Xenos temple. His rhetoric carries sharper edges now, his praise tinged with undertones that some might interpret as manipulation rather than motivation. His eyes hold shadows that were not there before, flickering at the edges of perception like flames seen through smoke. No one speaks of these changes. To question the Primarch would be to admit that perfection might be flawed, and such admissions have no place in the Third Legion's culture. Instead, the officers accept their assignments and disperse to their duties, each one determined to exceed the expectations that Fulgrim has set for them. The bonds of brotherhood hold firm for now. The purple and gold still shine untarnished. The Palatine Aquila still represents the highest honor in the Imperium, rather than the deepest shame. But the sword at Fulgrim's side whispers constantly, and the Primarch has begun to listen. Memory coils backward through time, settling upon the world that changed everything. Leren rotates slowly in the void, an ocean world of impossible beauty its surface broken only by floating coral atolls that drift on currents visible from orbit. The colors of this world defy description, blues and greens and purples blending in patterns that seem almost designed to please the eye. From the observation deck of the Pride of the Emperor, Laeran appears as a jewel set against the darkness of space. The layer had made this world their home. Serpentine xenos with multiple arms and insectoid features, they had achieved a level of technological sophistication that rivaled the Imperium itself. Their coral cities floated on anti-gravity platforms of elegant design. Their weapons drew upon energy sources that Imperial tech priests struggled to comprehend. Their society was organized around a complex chemical communion that unified the species in ways that human science could not replicate. The Council of Terror had estimated that bringing Laeran into compliance would require decades of sustained warfare. The Laer were too numerous, too well-equipped, too entrenched in their island fortresses to be overcome quickly. Patience and attrition would eventually prevail, but the cost in time and resources would be substantial. Fulgrim rejected this assessment with characteristic pride. He declared that the Emperor's children would conquer Laeran in a single month, proving once again that the Third Legion's excellence exceeded all conventional expectations. His officers accepted this impossible deadline without question, their faith in their Primarch Absolute. The campaign that followed was brutal beyond measure. The Laer fought with a ferocity that surprised even veteran Emperor's children, their defense of each coral atoll costing the Third Legion dearly. Over 700 Astartes fell in the first week alone, their bodies claimed by the alien ocean or recovered for proper honors when circumstances permitted. More than 4,000 were wounded seriously enough to require extended medical attention. But Fulgrim had made his boast, and the Emperor's children would not fail their Primarch. Every tactic in the Third Legion's arsenal was employed. Orbital bombardment cracked the larger atolls into fragments. Drop pod assaults claimed beachheads that were held against overwhelming counterattacks. Void warfare eliminated Laer vessels one by one until the Xenos could no longer contest Imperial control of their own skies. The Laer never surrendered. Not once, in all the weeks of slaughter, did a single Laer warrior lay down arms or request terms. They fought with the absolute conviction of a species defending something more precious than mere territory. They fought as if the very existence of their gods depended upon their resistance. In a sense, it did. When the final Laer stronghold fell, Fulgrim walked among the alien ruins with the curiosity that had always marked his approach to new discoveries. The central temple of this final atoll drew his attention, its architecture unlike anything else the Emperor's children had encountered. Where Laer buildings typically featured flowing organic curves, this temple was angular, almost geometric, its surfaces carved with symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Chief Apothecary Fabius accompanied the Primarch into the temple, his scientific curiosity overriding the instinctive unease that the structure evoked. Fabius had been one of the original 200, a survivor of the gene seed blight, whose own genetic legacy bore subtle malfunctions from those dark days. His obsession with biological perfection had led him to conduct experiments that pushed against the boundaries of acceptable Legion practice, modifications and enhancements that he justified as necessary steps toward eliminating the flaws that still plague some Emperor's children gene seed. Within the temple, the air itself felt wrong, Sounds echoed strangely, arriving at the ear a fraction of a second after they should. Colors seemed more vivid than they had any right to be. The purples and pinks of the interior decoration, almost luminous in the dim light. The scent of strange incense lingered, despite the violence that had torn through the structure only hours before. At the heart of the temple, embedded in a circular block of veined black stone, a sword waited. The blade was silver, single-edged, curved in the manner of ancient Terran weapons, but with proportions that suited a Primarch's grip perfectly. Its hilt was worked gold, elaborate without being ostentatious, and an amethyst of unusual size gleamed in the pommel. Script flowed along the blade's length, characters that seemed to move and reform even as Fulgrim studied them. The sword was beautiful. The sword was perfect. The sword called to something deep within the Primarch's soul, resonating with his appreciation for aesthetic excellence in ways that no weapon had ever achieved before. Fulgrim's senior officers counseled caution. Something about the weapon felt unwholesome, a taint that they could sense, but not identify. The temple itself radiated wrongness that even warriors hardened by decades of combat found difficult to ignore. Surely, they suggested, the sword could be studied at a distance, its properties analyzed by the fleet's tech priests before the Primarch considered claiming it as a trophy. Fulgrim dismissed these concerns with a wave of his hand. The sword was simply too beautiful to abandon, too perfect to leave behind. He drew it from the stone with a single smooth motion, and the blade sang as it came free, a note of such purity that those who heard it felt tears spring unbidden to their eyes. No one could have known what Fulgrim had claimed that day. No one could have understood that the sword contained a greater demon of Slaanesh, a keeper of secrets bound within the metal by the layer's darkest sorceries. The demon had waited for millennia, patient beyond mortal comprehension, knowing that eventually someone worthy would come to claim its prison as a prize. In Fulgrim, the daemon found the perfect host. The Primarch's pride, his obsessive pursuit of excellence, his fundamental belief in his own superiority. These were the doorways through which corruption would enter. The demon did not need to break down Fulgrim's defenses. It simply had to convince him that the whispers he heard were his own thoughts, his own insights, his own brilliant innovations in the eternal quest for perfection. The corruption began immediately, though its progress was subtle enough that months would pass before anyone noticed the changes. Fulgrim planted the Palatine Aquila over the last layer corpse, exactly 1 month after the campaign began, fulfilling his impossible boast through sheer determination and the sacrifice of his legion. The Emperor's children departed Laeran victorious, their holds filled with trophies and their battle standards heavy with new honors. They did not understand that they had already lost. The sword hung at Fulgrim's side, its beauty catching every eye, its whispers reaching only Primarch's ears. In the nights that followed, Fulgrim began to dream. Vivid visions of glory and transformation filled his sleep, showing him perfection achieved through means that the old doctrines of the Legion had never considered. These dreams felt more real than waking life, more meaningful than the endless grind of compliance actions and strategic conferences. The daemon spoke to Fulgrim constantly, but its voice was indistinguishable from his own internal monologue. It praised his achievements while hinting that greater accomplishments awaited. It questioned the constraints that the Emperor had placed upon his sons, while suggesting that true perfection required the freedom to explore all possibilities. It twisted the Primarch's natural pride into something darker, something that could not be satisfied by any victory or honor that the Imperium might offer. Fulgrim began to change. His decisions became more impulsive, driven by personal desire rather than strategic necessity. Compliance actions that once would have been conducted with careful planning now featured displays of violence and excess that served no military purpose. He withdrew from his officers for hours at a time, closeted alone in his chambers with only the sword for company. Those closest to the Primarch noticed these changes but hesitated to speak. To question Fulgrim was unthinkable, a violation of everything the Third Legion stood for. Instead, they rationalized what they observed, attributing the Primarch's altered behavior to the stress of command or the natural evolution of his leadership style. Only Julius Caesaron dared to express concern, approaching Fulgrim after a particularly disturbing execution of prisoners that had served no interrogative or deterrent purpose. The first captain spoke carefully, framing his words as questions rather than criticisms, but even this gentle inquiry provoked a response that shocked him. Fulgrim's eyes held something that Caesaron had never seen before, a cold fury mixed with amusement at his Jeanson's presumption. The Primarch's words were cutting, dismissive, designed to wound rather than instruct. Caesaron withdrew with apologies that felt hollow on his tongue, and he never raised his concerns again. The sword whispered on, and Fulgrim listened. And on the distant world of Davin, where Horus Lupercal recovered from wounds that should have killed him, the conspiracy that would tear the Imperium apart was already taking shape. The Fist of Iron hangs in the void, its brutal silhouette a stark contrast to the elegant lines of the pride of the Emperor. The flagship of the Iron Hands Legion bears the marks of countless campaigns, its armor scarred and patched but never weakened. Around it, the vessels of the 52nd Expeditionary Fleet maintain formation with the mechanical precision that characterizes everything the 10th Legion does. Ferrus Manus has agreed to meet with his brother Fulgrim, a reunion that both Primarchs have anticipated with genuine warmth. The friendship between the Phoenician and the Gorgon is legendary among the legions Astartes, a bond forged in the fires of competition and tempered by mutual respect that has only deepened over the decades of the Great Crusade. Memory reaches back to the first meeting between these two demigods beneath Mount Narodanya on Terra, where they challenged each other to forge the most perfect weapon ever created. For 3 solar months without pause, they worked the forges, each striving to outdo the other in craftsmanship and artistry. Fulgrim created Forgebreaker, a warhammer of such power that it could level a mountain with a single blow. Its head was worked with circuitry that enhanced its striking force beyond anything that metallurgy alone could achieve. Its haft was wrapped in the hide of beasts from a dozen worlds, each chosen for specific properties that enhanced the wielder's grip. Ferrus Manus created Fireblade, a sword that burned eternally with the fires of the forge where it was made. Its golden blade never cooled, never dimmed, the flames dancing along its edge, as if alive with the spirit of creation itself. When both weapons were complete, each Primarch examined the other's creation with the critical eye of a master craftsman. Each declared the other's weapon superior to his own. Without another word, without ceremony or formal exchange, they swapped weapons and sealed their friendship in the most profound way that 2 such beings could manage. Fulgrim carried Fireblade for decades, the burning sword a constant reminder of his brother's skill and friendship. Ferrus wielded Forgebreaker with devastating effect, the hammer's weight perfectly suited to his strength and fighting style. But Fireblade now hangs in Fulgrim's chambers, replaced at his side by the silver blade from Laren. The meeting takes place in Ferrus Manus's private sanctum, aboard the Fist of Iron, a chamber called the Anvilarium, where the Gorgon conducts his most important work. The walls are lined with weapons and trophies, each one representing a campaign or a defeated enemy. Ferrus himself stands at the chamber's center, his silver hands gleaming in the forge light that never dies within this space. Those hands are the Gorgon's most distinctive feature, living metal that bonded with his flesh when he plunged his arms into the liquid necrodermis of a creature he had slain on Medusa. They are stronger than any mortal metal, capable of shaping adamantium with bare fingers, and they have become symbols of the Iron Hand's philosophy of flesh, replaced by superior machine. Fulgrim enters the Anvilarium with a warmth that seems genuine, his arms spread in greeting as he approaches his oldest friend. The two Primarchs embrace, giants among giants, their reunion watched by the Morlock's Terminators, who serve as Ferrus Manus's personal guard, and the Phoenix Guard, who attend Fulgrim everywhere. At first, the conversation flows naturally. Brothers reunited after too long apart. They speak of campaigns fought and victories won. Ferrus describes the recent actions of the Iron Hands, his tactical assessments delivered with the blunt directness that characterizes everything he does. Fulgrim shares tales of the Emperor's children's achievements, his words elegant and precise but somehow off-key, as if he is performing a role rather than speaking from genuine feeling. Gradually, Fulgrim steers the conversation toward more dangerous ground. He speaks of the Emperor abandoning his sons, returning to Terra to pursue secret projects, while his children bleed and die across the galaxy. He questions the purpose of the Great Crusade, suggesting that its goals have become unclear, its methods stagnant. He hints at doubts about the Emperor's ultimate intentions, insinuations that dance along the edge of heresy without quite crossing the line. Ferrus Manus listens with growing unease. Something is wrong with his brother. Something fundamental has shifted in the Phoenician's character since last they met. The words Fulgrim speaks are not quite treason, but they carry undertones that the Gorgon finds deeply troubling. Then Fulgrim makes his true purpose clear. Horus Lupercal, the War Master, has decided to rebel against the Emperor. The Primarch of the Lunar Wolves has seen the truth of the Emperor's betrayal, has recognized that the Imperium's future lies not in slavish obedience to Terra, but in the freedom to pursue their own destiny. Many legions have already committed to this cause. Many more will follow when they understand what is at stake. Fulgrim has come to offer his brother a place in this new order. Together, the Emperor's children and the Iron Hands could stand at the forefront of the rebellion. Together, they could reshape the galaxy according to their own vision of perfection. The offer hangs in the air between them, and for a moment, the future of the Imperium balances on the edge of a knife. Ferrus Manus does not hesitate. His response is immediate, violent, and absolute. The Gorgon's silver hands close around his brother's throat, and his voice thunders through the Anvilarium with the fury of a god betrayed. He names Fulgrim traitor, madman, fool. He swears that the Iron Hands will never turn against the Emperor, that he will personally tear the hearts from every warrior who has fallen to this insanity. In the chaos that follows, Fulgrim breaks free from his brother's grip. Ferrus reaches for Fireblade, the sword that Fulgrim had forged for him in friendship, and the blade explodes in his hands, destroyed by the very flames that had given it power. The damage to Ferris is minimal, but the symbolic weight of that destruction is immense. Fulgrim flees the Anvilarium, and behind him, the Phoenix Guard spring into action. Their power halberds rise and fall in perfect synchronization, and every Iron Hands Morlock Terminator in the chamber dies in the span of 3 heartbeats. The finest warriors of the 10th Legion, butchered by men they had trusted as allies. The Emperor's children vessels open fire on the Iron Hands fleet, crippling ships whose crews never expected an attack from brothers. In the confusion of battle and betrayal, Fulgrim escapes to the pride of the Emperor, his mission a failure, but his own legion's betrayal now irrevocable. Ferris Manus stands in the Anvilarium, surrounded by the bodies of his closest guards, and his grief transforms into rage that will burn until his dying breath. He swears an oath that will lead him to Istvan V, to a confrontation with his former friend that will end in tragedy beyond measure. But that tragedy lies in the future, along the path that all traitors must walk. For now, the battle lines are drawn, the Brotherhood is broken, and the galaxy will never be the same. The La Fenice Theatre aboard the Pride of the Emperor has been transformed. Its elegant architecture, already designed to please the aesthetic sensibilities of the Emperor's children, has been rebuilt according to specifications that no imperial architect would recognize. The walls curve in ways that seem to defy geometry, their surfaces covered in silks of purple and pink that ripple without wind. The seating has been reorganized into a spiral pattern that draws the eye toward the central stage, where instruments of unusual design wait in positions of prominence. The Remembrancer Bekwa Kinska stands at the conductor's podium, her face alight with a fervor that has grown steadily since she visited the Lyre Temple on Laren. She has spent months composing her masterwork, a symphony called the Maraviglia, that she claims will revolutionize the art of music itself. New instruments have been invented to perform it, devices that produce sounds never before heard by human ears. The notation system she has developed to record it defies conventional musical theory. The audience gathers with anticipation, officers and remembrancers alike eager to witness what promises to be a transcendent artistic achievement. Fulgrim himself takes his seat in the position of honor, the silver sword from Laren resting across his knees. His expression carries a knowing quality, as if he alone understands what is about to occur. The symphony begins. The first movements are strange but beautiful, harmonies that seem to resonate with something deep within the listeners' souls. The new instruments produce tones that bypass the ears and speak directly to the nervous system, triggering emotional responses that have no obvious connection to the music itself. Some audience members weep without knowing why. Others feel surges of anger or desire that seem to come from nowhere and dissipate just as quickly. As the symphony progresses, its nature changes. The harmonies become discordant, the rhythms increasingly chaotic, the overall effect shifting from beauty to something that can only be described as an assault on the senses. The air in the theatre grows thick, difficult to breathe, and strange colors begin to manifest at the edges of vision. The Maraviglia is not merely a musical performance, it is a sorcerous ritual, a gateway between the material world and the realm of chaos. The barriers between dimensions begin to break down. Reality itself seems to shimmer and flex, unable to maintain its coherence against the sonic onslaught. And through that breach, the power of Slanesh pours into the theatre like water through a broken dam. What happens next defies rational description. Madness claims the audience in waves. Mortals and Astartes alike are overwhelmed by sensations so intense that consciousness itself becomes fragmentary. Some experience pleasure beyond anything human physiology was designed to process. Others feel pain that transcends the merely physical, agony that reaches into the soul and tears at its foundations. The boundaries between individuals begin to dissolve, and what emerges is a mass of writhing, screaming, ecstatic flesh that no longer recognizes itself as separate beings. Violence erupts without warning or logic. Warriors who moments before had been brothers now tear at each other with bare hands and drawn weapons. The blood that flows is almost irrelevant compared to the psychological destruction being wrought. 6 daemonettes manifest in the theatre, lesser demons of Slaanesh, who possess Kinska's performers and join the slaughter with inhuman glee. Their forms are beautiful and terrible, seductive and lethal, and where they pass, sanity dies. Kinska herself is one of the first to fall, torn apart by the very forces she summoned. Her final expression is one of transcendent joy, her artistic vision achieved at the cost of her life and sanity. But the true horror of the Maravillia lies not in the deaths it causes, but in the transformations. As the chaos reaches its peak, several Emperor's children leave their seats and rush toward the stage. They seize the instruments that Kinska designed, the devices that produce sounds beyond normal human hearing, and they begin to play. Julius Caesaron, first captain of the Legion, takes up a strange stringed instrument and draws sounds from it that shake the walls. Captain Marius Virusian claims a device that resembles a corrupted pipe organ, its tones capable of liquefying flesh at close range. These warriors become the first noise marines. They discover that the sonic weapons Kinska created can be turned to destructive purpose, that the same frequencies that drove the audience mad can be weaponized to devastating effect. The sensation of wielding such power is intoxicating, addictive, a pleasure that surpasses anything these warriors have experienced before. By the time the madness subsides, the Third Legion has changed forever. Those who survived the Maraviglia emerge with their souls compromised, their dedication to Slaanesh sealed in blood and sensation. The pursuit of perfection that once defined the Emperor's children has been twisted into something unrecognizable, a hunger for experience and excess that can never be satisfied. Fulgrim watches the aftermath with the satisfaction of an artist surveying a completed masterwork. The demon in his sword whispers approval, and for the first time, the Primarch does not even try to distinguish its voice from his own. They are united now, host and passenger, their purposes aligned in service to the Dark Prince of Pleasure. The Emperor's children who died in the Maraviglia are mourned by no one. Their bodies are disposed of without ceremony, their gene seed harvested where possible and discarded where not. They were the weak, the insufficiently evolved, the flaws in an otherwise perfect legion that have now been purged. Those who remain are stronger for the experience, or so they tell themselves. They have glimpsed a truth that transcends the narrow dogmas of the imperial truth, understanding of sensation and excess that the Emperor sought to keep from his children. They have been liberated from the constraints of conventional morality, freed to pursue perfection in all its forms without the limitations that once held them back. This is what they tell themselves in the quiet hours when doubt threatens to penetrate the walls of denial and rationalization. But deep Within, in the places that they no longer acknowledge, some part of them knows the truth. They have given themselves to chaos, and chaos never releases its claim. The surface of Istvan III burns beneath virus bombs that have scoured every trace of organic life from its continents. 8 billion humans have died in the span of hours, their bodies dissolved by the life-eater virus and then incinerated by the firestorm that followed. The Coral City, once a center of culture and commerce, now stands as a monument to death on a scale that defies comprehension. Yet the bombardment was not meant merely to punish rebellion or to demonstrate imperial might. It was designed to purge the traitor legions of elements whose loyalty to the emperor might prove inconvenient. On the surface of Istvan III, thousands of Astartes from the emperor's children, the world eaters, the death guard, and the sons of Horus have survived the initial bombardment. They were sent to the surface to put down an insurrection, deployed in the first wave because their commanders suspected their loyalty. They were meant to die alongside the civilians they came to destroy. But a warning came before the bombs fell. Captain Saul Tarvitz stood on the observation deck of the frigate Andronius, watching the cargo masters load virus bomb canisters into launch tubes that had been configured for surface deployment. The weapons were enormous, their casings marked with the skull and cross symbols that designated weapons of mass destruction. Tarvitz knew what those weapons were designed to do, knew that their deployment against a planetary surface violated every protocol the Imperium had established, and he knew that Lord Commander Eidolon had remained aboard the Pride of the Emperor rather than leading the first wave from the front as tradition demanded. The realization of what was about to happen struck Tarvitz like a physical blow. His brothers were on the surface, warriors who had served the Emperor faithfully for decades, and they were about to be murdered by their own legion. Tarvitz acted without authorization, without planning, without any consideration for the consequences to himself. He commandeered a Thunderhawk gunship and flew toward the surface, racing against the countdown that would end in genocide. During his desperate flight, he encountered Captain Nathaniel Garrow of the Death Guard, another loyalist who had discovered the plot and was attempting his own escape. Together, they reached the surface in time to warn the loyalist elements of what was coming. The warning saved lives, but it could not prevent the catastrophe entirely. When the virus bomb struck, they killed millions of microorganisms instantly, generating a wave of organic decay that released enormous quantities of flammable gas. The firestorm that followed when this gas ignited was visible from orbit, a wall of flame that swept across the Coral City and left nothing but ash in its wake. But those who had been warned sealed themselves inside bunkers, inside the precentor's palace, and other reinforced structures. They survived the initial bombardment, emerging into a world of ash and death, with vengeance burning in their hearts. The siege of Istvan III lasted 3 months. On the surface, approximately 100,000 loyal Astartes from 4 legions fought against the forces sent to destroy them. They were led by warriors who had been marked for death by their own commanders, their survival an offense that the traitors could not tolerate. Every day brought fresh assaults, fresh casualties, fresh proof that the Imperium they had served had turned against them. Saul Tarvitz emerged as the de facto commander of the loyalist forces, his tactical acumen and unwavering courage inspiring warriors from multiple legions to stand together against impossible odds. He organized the defense of key positions, coordinated counterattacks that bought precious time and maintained discipline among forces that had every reason to surrender to despair. Ancient Rilina of the Emperor's Children fought alongside Tarvitz, his dreadnought chassis, shrugging off damage that would have destroyed lesser war machines. The Ancient of Rites had served the Third Legion since its founding, his wisdom and experience honored by warriors across the Imperium. His presence on the surface served as a rallying point for loyalist Emperor's children, a reminder of what their legion had once stood for. Solomon Demeter led his company with the practical determination that had always set him apart from his more flamboyant brothers. When corruption claimed the Emperor's children, it was Demeter's independence that allowed him to see clearly. He refused to participate in the atrocities that his legion had embraced, and for this clarity, he was marked for death. The end came for Demeter through betrayal by a brother he had trusted. Lucius, the peerless swordsman whose vanity had led him to carve his own face into a mask of scars, had survived the initial bombardment. He approached Demeter under the guise of shared purpose, of two loyalists working together against the traitors who had corrupted their legion. Then Lucius struck. The blade that killed Solomon Demeter was wielded by a brother, a comrade, a fellow warrior of the Emperor's children. Demeter died with confusion in his eyes, unable to understand why a fellow loyalist would turn against him in the midst of their desperate stand. The answer was simple, if incomprehensible to a mind like Demeter's. Lucius had never been a loyalist. He had survived the bombardment through pure chance, and he had used that survival to infiltrate the loyalist forces. His purpose was not to fight alongside them, but to sow discord from within, to eliminate key leaders and undermine the defense that Tarvitz had so carefully organized. When his treachery was discovered, Lucius fought his way free of the loyalist positions and returned to the traitor lines. He was welcomed as a hero, his murder of Demeter praised as a demonstration of the ruthlessness that the new order required. The siege ground on, but its outcome was never in doubt. The loyalists were outnumbered, outgunned, and cut off from any possibility of reinforcement or resupply. They fought not to win, but to make their deaths meaningful, to delay the traitors long enough for word of the betrayal to reach Terra. In the end, only orbital bombardment could finish what the virus bombs had begun. The traitor fleet turned its weapons on the survivors, reducing the coral city to molten slag and ending the resistance once and for all. Saul Tarvitz died loyal to the Emperor, his final moments spent fighting alongside brothers who had chosen honor over survival. Ancient Rilina was believed destroyed, buried beneath thousands of tons of radioactive debris. But 100 loyal Astartes had bought the Imperium 3 precious months. They had demonstrated that betrayal would not go unanswered, that even within the traitor legions there were warriors who would not abandon their oaths. And in the darkness beneath the ruins of the coral city, something stirred. Rillinor had not been destroyed, damaged, buried, cut off from all contact with the outside universe. The Ancient of Rites began a vigil that would last for 10,000 years. The drop site on Istvan V stretches toward distant mountain ranges, a barren expanse of black volcanic sand that seems to absorb light itself. The sky above churns with ash clouds from the planet's active geology, casting everything in shades of grey and crimson that lend the landscape an appropriately hellish aspect. This is the ground that the Imperium has chosen for its counterstrike against Horus, the place where the traitors will be brought to justice, 7 legions have been dispatched to destroy the rebellion before it can spread. The Iron Hands under Ferrus Manus, consumed by rage at his brother's betrayal. The Salamanders under Vulcan, their humanitarian philosophy offended by the atrocities on Istvan III. The Raven Guard under Corvus Corax, their stealth tactics ideally suited for the coming assault. These 3 legions form the first wave, dropping from orbit to establish a beachhead, while the second wave secures landing zones and prepares to reinforce the attack. The plan is sound, the numerical advantage overwhelming. Victory seems assured, but 4 of the 7 legions dispatched to destroy Horus have already pledged themselves to his cause. The Iron Warriors under Perturabo, the Night Lords under Conrad Kurz, the Word Bearers under Lorgar, the Alpha Legion under Alphareus. These forces descend to the surface in the guise of allies, taking up positions behind the Loyalist lines under the pretense of reinforcement. The Iron Hands lead the assault with characteristic aggression, their hatred of the traitors driving them forward faster than tactical wisdom would advise. Ferrus Manus himself advances at the head of his legion, his silver hands itching to close around Fulgrim's throat and crush the life from his former friend. The Salamanders and Raven Guard follow in support, their positions extending the Loyalist line, but also exposing their flanks to the forces that wait behind them. The battle begins with deceptive normality. The traitor legions give ground before the Loyalist advance, falling back toward prepared positions as if genuinely retreating. The fighting is intense but not unexpected, exactly what the Imperial forces anticipated from an enemy defending against superior numbers. Then a red flare rises from Horus's command position. The second wave opens fire on the Loyalist forces from behind. What follows is slaughter on a scale that the Imperium has never witnessed. Tens of thousands of Astartes die in the first minutes as bolter fire and artillery from supposedly friendly forces tears through their rear formations. Units that had advanced confidently toward the enemy now find themselves trapped between 2 hostile forces with no route of escape. The Salamanders and Raven Guard are broken within hours, their Primarchs wounded, and their legions reduced to scattered fragments that will take generations to rebuild. Vulcan vanishes in the chaos, his fate unknown. Corax is gravely wounded, but manages to extract a remnant of his legion to continue the fight. Ferrus Manus refuses to retreat. The Primarch of the Iron Hands has seen his brother's treachery, has felt the knife in his back wielded by legions he trusted as allies. His rage transcends any consideration of tactical reality. He drives forward through the carnage, silver hands crushing traitor skulls, his voice a constant roar of fury and grief as he searches for the one enemy he truly wants to face. Fulgrim finds him on a rise overlooking the worst of the slaughter. The 2 Primarchs face each other across the black sand, their legions locked in battle around them. Ferrus carries a reforged fire blade, the sword remade from the fragments of the weapon that exploded in his hands aboard the Fist of Iron. Fulgrim bears both weapons that represent their shattered brotherhood, Forgebreaker in one hand and the silver layer blade in the other. Their duel is the stuff of legends, 2 demigods clashing with power that reshapes the landscape around them. Each blow would kill a lesser warrior. Each parry requires strength that no human could generate. The black sand melts into glass beneath their feet, and the air itself screams with the energy of their conflict. Ferrus gains the upper hand. His rage gives him strength that even a Primarch should not possess, and Fulgrim falls back under the assault. The Gorgon disarms his brother, sending Forgebreaker spinning away into the melee. and raises Fireblade for a killing stroke. In that moment of vulnerability, Fulgrim draws the layer blade. The weapon moves faster than the eye can follow, its edge finding the joint between Ferrus, Manus' gorget and chestplate. The cut is not deep, but it does not need to be. The blade is saturated with chaos energy, its poison designed to kill beings far more resilient than any mortal warrior. Ferrus falters, and Fulgrim's counterattack drives him to his knees. Standing over his oldest friend, the Primarch who had once forged weapons with him as a symbol of their brotherhood, Fulgrim experiences a moment of absolute clarity. The daemon's influence recedes just long enough for him to see what he has become, to understand the magnitude of his fall. Horror fills him, and his arm refuses to complete the killing stroke. The daemon in the sword does not share his hesitation. With a wrench of will that Fulgrim cannot resist, the creature seizes control of his arm and brings the blade down in a perfect arc. The silver edge passes through Ferrus Manus' neck without slowing, and the Primarch's head tumbles to the black sand at his brother's feet. The grief that follows nearly destroys Fulgrim. He collapses beside the body of his brother, sobbing with the full force of his superhuman constitution. The weight of what he has done crashes down upon him, and for a moment, he wishes for nothing more than to die alongside the friend he has murdered. The demon whispers comfort, offers oblivion, promises escape from the unbearable pain of consciousness. Fulgrim accepts. In that moment of weakness and despair, the demon completes its possession. Fulgrim's soul is crushed into the corners of his own mind, imprisoned in flesh that he can no longer control. The creature from the Lair Temple takes full command of the Primarch's body, and its first act is to claim Ferrus Manus' severed head as a trophy. When Fulgrim rises from the black sand, he is no longer the being who conquered Chemos and earned the right to wear the Palatine Aquila. He is a puppet animated by a demon, a hollow shell filled with chaos energy, a monster wearing the face of a god. The drop site massacre claims perhaps 90% of the combined Loyalist forces. It is the single greatest military disaster in Imperial history, a catastrophe that cripples the Emperor's ability to respond to the rebellion. From this day forward, the Imperium fights for its survival rather than for victory, and deep within the flesh that was once his own, what remains of Fulgrim screams in endless, impotent horror. The Imperial Palace stretches across the continent that was once called Asia. Its walls and towers a monument to the Emperor's vision of humanity's future. For months now, those walls have shaken beneath the artillery of Horus's forces. For months, the defenders have bled and died to hold positions that seem more hopeless with each passing day. The Siege of Terror has entered its final phase. The Emperor's children arrived with over 100,000 legionaries, one of the largest contingents among the traitor forces. Their purple and gold armor has long since been stained with blood and ash. Their once pristine livery now a patchwork of hastily repaired damage and deliberate defacement. Many have replaced their original colors with bright pinks and blacks, the traditional palette of Slanesh worship, their devotion to the Dark Prince now openly displayed. Fulgrim himself takes little direct interest in the siege's progress. The demon that wears his form finds the grinding attrition of siege warfare tedious, the endless calculations of artillery positions and assault timing beneath its attention. It spends its time goading Angron into greater frenzies of violence, tormenting Perturabo with observations about the Iron Warrior's thankless role as siege specialists. and indulging in pleasures that would horrify any witness who retained their sanity. At the Saturnine Gate, a major breach appears in the Imperial defenses. The traitor forces surge forward, scenting victory, and the Emperor's children join the assault with characteristic enthusiasm. Fulgrim leads the charge personally, his corrupted form cutting through defenders with contemptuous ease. The opposition that materializes stops the assault cold. First Captain Sigismund of the Imperial Fists fights like a man possessed, his blade a blur of destruction that leaves Emperor's children dead at every stroke. He is widely considered the finest swordsman in the Imperium, his skill unmatched even among the Primarch's own champions, and today he proves that reputation justified. Behind Sigismund comes Rogel Dawn. The Primarch of the Imperial Fists has defended Terra with every resource at his command. His strategic genius, the only thing that has kept the walls intact against the overwhelming traitor assault. His presence on the battlefield transforms the defense from desperate resistance into calculated counterattack. Fulgrim and Dawn clash amid the ruins of the Saturnine Gate, their confrontation a distillation of everything the siege has become. The demon in Fulgrim's flesh expresses contempt for the Praetorian's stolid dedication, mocking his defense of a cause already lost. Dawn's response is silent fury, his blade seeking the throat of a being that was once his brother. The fight does not go as the Daemon expected. Fulgrim has not yet achieved full daemonhood. The creature that controls him has vast power, but it is constrained by the limitations of mortal flesh in ways that it finds increasingly frustrating. Dawn, fighting with the desperate strength of a Primarch defending his home, proves more than a match for this compromised enemy. The Emperor's children suffer catastrophic casualties as their Primarch's personal guard is cut down around him. The assault on the Saturnine Gate fails utterly, and Fulgrim orders a withdrawal that looks far too much like a rout. The aftermath of this defeat transforms the Emperor's children's role in the siege. Fulgrim declares that this crude work of demolition no longer interests him. The Daemon has tasted the pleasures that Terra offers, the billions of civilians cowering in the underhives and refugee camps, and it finds this prey far more appealing than the stubborn resistance of the Imperial Fists. Within days, the Emperor's children have largely abandoned organized participation in the siege. They descend instead upon Terra's civilian population centers, bringing with them a horror that makes even the other traitor legions uncomfortable. The slaughter that follows claims more victims than any other aspect of the siege. The Emperor's children kill more than 40 times their own number in unarmed civilians, their excess limited only by the time available before the siege reaches its conclusion. Millions are murdered outright. Countless thousands more die providing cruder pleasures to Astartes who have abandoned any pretense of military purpose. Bodies are rendered down into drugs and stimulants. Prisoners are transformed into canvases for artistic expressions of suffering. Demons are summoned and set loose among the helpless populace, their depredations creating terror that feeds the power of Slaanesh. Fulgrim himself directs these atrocities with obvious delight, his involvement personal and enthusiastic in ways that would have been unthinkable for the being who once sought perfection through martial excellence and artistic achievement. The fall of the Emperor's children is complete. They are no longer warriors in any meaningful sense. They are predators, pure and simple, their only purpose the pursuit of sensation in all its forms. When Horus falls to the Emperor's blade aboard the vengeful spirit, the siege ends in sudden collapse. The traitor legions flee Terra, their cores shattered by the death of their warmaster, their cohesion dissolving into every legion for itself chaos. The Emperor's children are among the last to leave, their withdrawal delayed by reluctance to abandon pleasures so recently discovered. When they finally break orbit, they carry with them the bodies of countless victims, provisions for the long journey to whatever refuge they can find. The galaxy will never be the same, and in the darkness of the warp, Slaanesh watches its newest servants with approval and anticipation. The aftermath of the Siege of Terra sweeps across the Imperium like a cleansing tide, loyalist forces hunting the remnants of the traitor legions with a fury born of grief and outrage. The Imperial fists, the Ultramarines, the Space Wolves, and every other force that remained true to the Emperor now prosecute a campaign of vengeance that will come to be known as the Scouring. For the Emperor's children, the Scouring becomes a running retreat across scores of star systems. Imperial vessels pursuing Fulgrim's fleet follow a trail of devastated worlds, planets whose populations have been subjected to atrocities that test the sanity of even hardened space marines. Corpses are piled in arrangements that suggest artistic intent. Survivors plead for death rather than rescue, their minds broken by experiences they cannot describe. Thousands are taken as slaves with each planetary assault. Their fate sealed the moment Emperor's children boots touch their soil. The Third Legion has transformed completely from the noble warriors who once bore the Palatine Aquila with pride. Their purple and gold has given way entirely to the pinks and blacks of Slaanesh devotion. Their pursuit of perfection has become a pursuit of excess, each sensation feeding into an addiction that can never be satisfied. Combat is no longer a means to an end, but an end in itself. The thrill of violence as intoxicating as any drug. The change is physical as well as spiritual. Exposure to chaos energies has begun to manifest in mutations that would once have horrified the Emperor's children, but are now embraced as marks of favor. Some warriors grow additional sensory organs, their flesh sprouting eyes or ears in locations that serve no practical purpose, but enhance the range of experiences available to them. Others find their nervous systems rewired, their pain and pleasure responses tangled into indistinguishable knots that make every sensation simultaneously agonizing and ecstatic. Fulgrim himself has undergone the most dramatic transformation. During the retreat from Terra, events unfold on the crone world of Idris that complete the Primarch's corruption. The details vary depending on who tells the tale, but the outcome is consistent across all accounts. Perturabo, Primarch of the Iron Warriors, accompanies Fulgrim on a mission to Idris, supposedly seeking weapons or artifacts that might aid the traitor cause. What he finds instead is betrayal by a brother who views him as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. The world of Idris holds a gateway to power that Fulgrim requires for his final transformation. The demon within him has shown its host what true apotheosis looks like, the ascension from mortal flesh to eternal demonhood that Slaanesh offers to its most devoted servants. But achieving this ascension requires energy beyond anything that Fulgrim possesses naturally. Perturabo provides that energy unwillingly, unknowingly, until the moment when Fulgrim's treachery becomes clear. The Iron Warrior's Primarch attacks Fulgrim with his Thunderhammer, and for a moment it appears that justice will finally be served. The blow that lands destroys Fulgrim's physical form, shattering bones and rupturing organs with the force of a contained explosion. But the daemon is no longer dependent on mortal flesh. What rises from the ruin of Fulgrim's body is something new, something that has never existed before in all the long history of the galaxy. The Primarch's soul, completely fused with the demon that has possessed him, takes shape in the warp stuff that now comprises his being. 4 arms emerge from a torso that flows downward into a serpentine tail. Wings unfurl from shoulders that were never designed to support them. The face remains recognizably Fulgrim's, but twisted now into an expression of absolute corruption. Daemon Primarch Fulgrim surveys the ruins of Idris and finds the sight pleasing. Perturabo retreats with his iron warriors, his hatred of Fulgrim now infinitely greater than it was before. The Lord of Iron will never forgive this betrayal, though in the madness of the long war that follows, the traitor legions will fight alongside each other despite countless mutual grudges. The Emperor's children possess a god now, a being of the warp whose power dwarfs anything they have known before. Their devotion to Slaanesh takes on new dimensions as they worship their Primarch as an avatar of the Dark Prince's will. Years pass in the Scouring. The Emperor's children are pushed back system by system, their numbers declining as loyalist forces exact a bloody toll. But they are never truly defeated, never eliminated, always slipping away to ravage another world before Imperial forces can respond. The confrontation at Thessala ends this phase of the war. Roboute Guilliman, Lord of Ultramar and Primarch of the Ultramarines, has gathered an enormous force to hunt Fulgrim. 6 successor chapters accompany the Ultramarines themselves, a combined strength that exceeds 100,000 Astartes. The fleet that carries this army is one of the largest assembled since the Crusade ended, its firepower sufficient to scour worlds from existence. The Emperor's children are trapped in the Thessala system, their escape routes blocked by Guilliman's vessels. Rather than flee, Fulgrim chooses to fight, his arrogance undimmed by countless reversals. The battle that follows is a brutal affair, void, warfare and ground combat blending into a single sustained apocalypse. Guilliman leads 100 Ultramarines in a desperate teleport assault onto Fulgrim's flagship, seeking to decapitate the Emperor's children leadership in a single stroke. What he finds instead is his transformed brother. Fulgrim in his demon form is beyond anything that Guilliman has prepared to face. 4 arms wielding poison blades create a wall of death that even a Primarch cannot penetrate safely. The serpentine body moves with fluid grace that defies physical law, and the wings carry Fulgrim above attacks that should have ended the fight in Guilliman's favor. The duel is short and decisive. Guilliman wears the scar from Corfaren's wound at Calth, a mark that should have healed completely, given the Primarch's superhuman constitution. Fulgrim notices this scar, and his blade finds it with surgical precision. The poison that enters Guilliman's bloodstream is warp-tainted, designed to kill beings far more resilient than any mortal warrior. The Lord of Ultramar collapses as his gene sons teleport him to safety, but no apothecary in the fleet possesses the knowledge to counter what flows through his veins. Guilliman is placed in stasis, frozen in the instant of death, his fate suspended, but not resolved. He will remain in that state for 10,000 years. Slaanesh rewards Fulgrim's victory with a demon world, a planet of impossible pleasures and eternal torment that the Primarch names Kallax after the factory fortress, where he was raised on Chemos. Here, Fulgrim retreats to pursue his own pleasures, abandoning his legion to its fate in the Eye of Terror. The Emperor's children scatter into warbands, their unity shattered by the loss of their Primarch's guidance. Each warband pursues its own vision of excess, its own understanding of the pleasures that Slaanesh offers to the devoted. The scouring ends not with the destruction of the traitor legions, but with their exile to the Eye of Terror, that great wound in reality where the laws of the material universe hold no power. The long war has begun. The Eye of Terror yawns before the retreating Emperor's Children fleet, a swirling vortex of impossible colors that marks the boundary between reality and the realm of chaos. For generations, the Eye has been a place of legend and terror, the wound left by the fall of the Eldar that bleeds warp energy into the material universe. Now it becomes a refuge, a homeland for those who have given themselves to powers that the Imperium cannot comprehend. The Emperor's Children enter the Eye as a legion, 100,000 strong, despite the losses of the heresy and the scouring. They emerge as fragments, warbands of varying sizes that share gene seed and heraldry, but little else. The process of fragmentation begins almost immediately upon reaching the Eye. The slaves taken during the retreat are insufficient to meet the Legion's needs. Chaos Astartes require stimulation that normal humans cannot provide for long. Their senses so jaded by corruption that only the most extreme experiences register. Within months of entering the Eye, the Emperor's Children have exhausted their supply of captives. They begin to prey upon each other, warband against warband, brother against brother. Then they begin to prey upon the servants of other traitor legions. The legion wars that follow tear the Eye of Terror apart. The Emperor's Children raid word-bearer cult temples, world-eater gladiatorial pits, even the fortress monasteries of the Iron Warriors. They steal slaves, weapons, resources, anything that can be converted into sensation or sold for the means to acquire more. Their reputation among the traitor legions shifts from allies to parasites, from warriors to predators. The sons of Horus suffer the ultimate indignity at Emperor's Children hands. Horus's body, preserved by his legion as a relic of their fallen war master, is stolen in a raid that leaves thousands of sons of Horus dead. The Emperor's Children clone the war master's remains, hoping to create servants of unlimited power. And when each clone proves unsuitable, they dispose of it and begin again. The original body is never recovered, lost somewhere in the endless pleasures and torments of the Emperor's Children domain. This theft triggers the War of the False Primarchs, a conflict that nearly sees the sons of Horus destroyed entirely. They emerge reborn as the Black Legion under Abaddon's command, their hatred of the Emperor's Children an eternal wound that will never heal. The Battle of Scalathrax marks the final dissolution of the Emperor's Children as a unified force. On a demon world contested between the Emperor's Children and the World Eaters, the temperature drops to levels that will kill even enhanced Astartes. Both legions fall back to shelter, preparing to resume their conflict when conditions permit. Khan the Betrayer, champion of the World Eaters, refuses to accept this delay. In a frenzy of violence that epitomizes his legion's descent into mindless rage, he attacks both sides indiscriminately, setting fire to the shelters where his own brothers huddle against the cold. The battle that follows shatters both legions into warbands that will never reunite. The Emperor's Children scatter across the Eye of Terror and beyond, each warband pursuing its own path to pleasure and power. The flawless host obsesses over martial perfection, their definition of excellence warped by chaos into something unrecognizable. They seek out the finest warriors in the galaxy, not to learn from them, but to kill them. each victory adding to their belief in their own superiority. The cohors Nasicae worship sensation in all its forms, their rituals involving experiences that would kill unaugmented humans within seconds. They have modified their bodies extensively, adding organs and neural pathways that enhance their capacity for pleasure beyond anything that nature ever intended. Fabius Bile leads his consortium of renegade apothecaries, selling his genetic expertise to any who can pay his price. He has cloned Ferrus Manus multiple times at Fulgrim's command, each clone displaying the same stubborn loyalty to the emperor that marked the original. Each clone is eventually destroyed when it refuses to turn traitor, its body recycled for the next attempt. Lucius the Eternal wanders the galaxy, his curse blessing and tormenting him in equal measure. Anyone who kills Lucius and feels even the smallest satisfaction in the act transforms into him, their body warping as their soul is consumed. The victim's face joins the countless others trapped in Lucius's armor, screaming silently for eternity. This curse has claimed warriors of every description. Chaos, champions, and imperial heroes alike have fallen to Lucius's blade, and those who managed to kill him have suffered fates worse than death. Even mechanical beings have proven vulnerable, their machine spirits corrupted by the power of Slaanesh. Each death diminishes what remains of Lucius's sanity. He no longer remembers how many times he has died, how many bodies he has worn, how many souls now fuel his eternal existence. The curse that Slaanesh bestowed as a reward has become an imprisonment from which there is no escape. Through it all, Fulgrim remains on his demon world, largely indifferent to the fate of his scattered sons. The Primarch spends millennia recreating chemos, fighting the battles of his youth over and over in search of the perfect victory. Slaaneshi pilgrims who reach his domain are forced to dance until they collapse, and the demonettes that serve him tear apart any who stop moving. Occasionally, Fulgrim emerges to pursue some whim, or participate in the Black Crusades that Abaddon launches against the Imperium. His presence on a battlefield transforms the character of the fighting, his demonic power bending reality in ways that favor the forces of chaos. But he never stays long, always returning to his pleasures before the battle reaches its conclusion. The Emperor's children have become what their name suggests, in the most twisted possible sense. They are children of excess, offspring of sensation, heirs to nothing but the endless pursuit of feeling something, anything, that penetrates the numbness of their corrupted souls. 10,000 years pass in the eye of terror, and every one of those years adds new horrors to the Emperor's children's legacy. Beneath the ruins of the Coral City on Istvan III, something stirs in the darkness. Ancient Rilanor, the venerable of the Palatine host, an ancient of rites, has not been destroyed. The loyalist dreadnought survived the orbital bombardment that ended the siege, buried beneath thousands of tons of radioactive slag that would kill any organic life within minutes of exposure. His ceramite shell proves stronger than the forces arrayed against it, and his reactor continues to provide power even after 10 millennia of isolation. The years have not been kind to Rilanor's sanity. Trapped in absolute darkness, cut off from all contact with the outside universe, the Ancient has had nothing to occupy him but his own thoughts and memories. He has forgotten his original name, the identity he carried before internment in the dreadnought chassis. He has forgotten the names of his brothers, the faces of his commanders, the details of campaigns that once defined his existence. But he has never forgotten his hatred Fulgrim's betrayal burns in Rillena's consciousness like a star that refuses to die. The memory of his Primarch's treachery provides focus when madness threatens, purpose when despair whispers that surrender would be merciful. For 10,000 years, Rillenoa has planned his revenge, and that planning has kept him functional when isolation should have destroyed him entirely. During his long vigil, Rillenoa has not been idle. The tunnels beneath the Coral City contain the wreckage of the war that destroyed its surface. Weapons and equipment from 4 legions lie scattered in the rubble, including the sonic weapons that the First Noise Marines wielded during the Maraviglia and the assaults that followed. Rillenoa has modified these weapons, transforming them from tools of corruption into something far more dangerous. He has created a beacon. The signal that broadcasts from beneath Istvan III carries a simple message, repeated endlessly across frequencies that pierce the warp itself. The words announce that the Ancient awaits, that one loyal son of the Emperor's children remains, that those who would face him need only follow the signal to its source. The beacon reaches across the galaxy and into the eye of terror. It finds the scattered war bands of the Emperor's children and whispers to them of a survivor, a relic of their legion's forgotten glory. It reaches Fulgrim himself, stirring the Daemon Primarch's curiosity in ways that nothing has managed for centuries. Eventually, the beacon accomplishes its purpose. A thousand-sun sorcerer named Calistarius arrives on Istvan III, drawn by the signal's promise of ancient knowledge. He is accompanied by Emperor's children warriors who seek whatever artifact or weapon Rylena guards, their corruption so complete that they see nothing wrong in desecrating the grave of the loyalist brothers. What they find exceeds all expectations. Rylena emerges from his tomb like a vengeful ghost, his dreadnought chassis scarred by millennia, but still functional. The traitors who came seeking treasure find only death, their chaos-enhanced flesh providing poor protection against a being who has had 10,000 years to prepare for this moment. The commotion draws greater attention. Fulgrim himself descends to Istvan III, curious about the beacon and the being who has persisted so long in defiance of his victory. The Daemon Primarch approaches the entrance to Rylena's lair with the casual arrogance that has characterized his existence since ascending to demonhood. What follows is a confrontation that will echo through the remaining history of the Emperor's children. Fulgrim offers Rylena a chance at redemption, at joining his brothers in the service of Slaanesh. The Daemon Primarch speaks of pleasures beyond mortal comprehension, of power that transcends the limitations of the flesh, of reunion with a legion that has evolved beyond the constraints of imperial dogma. His words are seductive, persuasive, designed to appeal to any spark of loyalty that might remain in the Ancient's consciousness. Rylena's response will become legendary among those who still honor the Emperor. The Ancient rejects Fulgrim absolutely, completely, and forever. He names himself Rylena of the Emperor's children, Ancient of rights, venerable of the Palatine host, and proud servant of the Emperor of mankind, beloved by all. He declares that all that remains between himself and his former Primarch is that they will die together. Then he activates the weapon he has spent 10,000 years preparing. The virus bomb that Rylena has concealed in his chassis is powerful enough to kill even a Daemon Primarch if detonated at close range. Its construction has occupied most of his long vigil, each component scavenged from the ruins around him and assembled with painstaking precision. Fulgrim recoils, his demonic nature instinctively recognizing the threat. The Emperor's children warriors who accompanied him scramble to stop the detonation, their devotion to their Primarch overriding any instinct for self-preservation. In the chaos that follows, an unexpected ally reveals himself. Calistarius, the Thousand-Sun sorcerer, turns against his Emperor's children companions. The sorcerer has witnessed something that has shaken his faith in the Chaos Gods, has seen in Rillenor's defiance an ability that he thought lost forever. He uses his powers to hold back the traitors, giving Rilleanor the moment he needs to complete his final act. The explosion that follows is visible from orbit. Rilleanor dies in the detonation, his long vigil finally ended. The Thousand-Sun sorcerer dies beside him, his redemption purchased with his life. The Emperor's children who accompanied Fulgrim die as well, their corrupted bodies vaporized by the virus bomb's fury. Fulgrim survives. The Daemon Primarch is not so easily destroyed, and Fulgrim reforms from the warp energies that comprise his being. But Rilleanor's rejection has cut him in ways that physical weapons cannot. For the first time in millennia, something has penetrated the perfect satisfaction that Slaanesh's blessing provides. A loyal son of the Emperor's children has existed for 10,000 years, and that son rejected everything that Fulgrim now represents. The knowledge gnaws at the Daemon Primarch in ways that nothing else has managed. Rilleanor's defiance proves that the corruption was not inevitable, that the fall of the Emperor's children was a choice rather than a destiny. Every pleasure that Fulgrim pursues is now tinged with the memory of that moment, that absolute rejection, that proof of what might have been. Ancient Rilleanor achieves in death what no enemy could accomplish in life. He wounds Fulgrim's soul. The 41st millennium draws toward its close, and the Imperium has never been weaker. The Cicatrix Maledictum, the Great Rift, tears across the galaxy like a wound that will never heal. Half of the Emperor's domain has been cut off from the Astronomican's light, plunging countless worlds into the darkness of the Imperium Nihilus. Chaos warbands raid with impunity across both sides of the rift, their attacks growing bolder as Imperial defenses strain to cover an ever-expanding front. Robout Guilliman has returned. The Lord of Ultramar, preserved in stasis for 10,000 years, was revived through technologies and rituals that border on the heretical. His resurrection has galvanized the Imperium, providing leadership and hope to forces that have begun to despair of survival. Guilliman has launched the Indomitus Crusade, a counter-offensive on a scale not seen since the Great Crusade itself. New weapons and warriors flow from Mars to reinforce battered Imperial forces. The primary Space Marines, Cole's millennia-long project, take the field alongside their firstborn brothers. For the first time in generations, the Imperium advances rather than merely holding ground. The Daemon Primarchs take note. Magnus the Red has emerged from the Eye of Terror at the head of his 1,000 sons, his sorcerous power reshaping reality wherever he walks. Mortarion leads the Death Guard in a campaign of plague and despair that has claimed entire sectors. Angron's World Eaters fall upon the Imperium in blood-mad fury that leaves nothing alive in their wake. And now Fulgrim stirs on his demon world, his attention drawn by Guilliman's resurrection in ways that millennia of isolation could not achieve. The two Primarchs have unfinished business. At Thessala, Fulgrim struck Guilliman down with a poisoned blade, leaving him frozen between life and death for 10,000 years. The wound still marks Guilliman, a reminder of the brother he could not defeat. For Fulgrim, that victory represents the last moment, when his actions had meaning beyond the pursuit of sensation. The last time he achieved something that the wider galaxy would remember. News of Guilliman's return reaches Fulgrim through channels that transcend normal communication. The warp itself carries whispers of the avenging sun's resurrection, of his crusade to restore what chaos has torn apart. Slaanesh's servants speak of the confrontation to come, of the pleasures that await when brother faces brother once more. Fulgrim rises from his endless amusements and turns his attention to the material universe. The signs of his imminent return manifest across the Imperium in ways that terrify those with eyes to see. Cults of excess spring up on worlds that had never known chaos worship, their rituals opening pathways for demonic influence. Noise marines emerge from the eye of terror in greater numbers than have been seen since the heresy, their sonic weapons shattering the defenses of systems that stand in their path. The Emperor's children, scattered for millennia, begin to gather. Warbands that had fought each other for generations now answer a call that resonates through their corrupted souls. Their Primarch returns, and with him comes the promise of pleasures beyond anything that individual warbands could achieve. Lord Commander Eidolon leads the vanguard of this gathering, his devotion to Fulgrim undiminished by 10,000 years of separation. The Exemplar has survived every danger that the Eye of Terror could throw at him, his arrogance and skill carrying him through conflicts that should have claimed his life 100 times over. Fabius Bile provides the flesh and gene seed that the reunited Legion requires. His experiments have continued throughout the long war, each generation of creations more monstrous than the last. The new men that serve as his bodyguard are barely recognizable as human, their forms modified beyond anything that natural evolution could produce. Lucius the Eternal brings his curse and his blade, his endless resurrections having claimed thousands of souls across the millennia. The champion of Slaanesh has lost whatever remnants of sanity he once possessed, but his skill with the sword remains unmatched. In the year marked by Imperial scholars as 999 of the 41st millennium, Fulgrim the Daemon Primarch crosses from the warp into real space. His form is magnificent and terrible in equal measure. 4 arms wield weapons that should not exist in the material universe, their edges sharp enough to cut the bonds between atoms. His serpentine body coils through dimensions that human eyes cannot perceive, and his wings catch winds that blow from no earthly direction. The face that surveys his gathered sons remains hauntingly beautiful. The features of the Primarch who once sought perfection through noble means, now twisted into an expression of absolute corruption. The Emperor's children fall to their knees before their returned master. Fulgrim speaks to his sons of the war to come, of the pleasures that await when terror itself falls to their assault. He speaks of Guilliman and the reckoning that must occur between them, of wounds given and wounds to be repaid. He speaks of Slaanesh's favor and the rewards that devotion brings. His words are seductive, intoxicating, designed to inflame the passions of beings who have spent millennia in pursuit of sensation. The Emperor's children who hear them feel their corruption deepen, their devotion to the Dark Prince strengthened by proximity to its greatest servant. The Imperium does not yet know what approaches. Guilliman prosecutes his crusade without understanding that his brother has emerged from the war. that the confrontation at Thessala will soon have a second chapter. Imperial forces fight the threats they can see, while a greater danger gathers beyond their perception. The Emperor's children move toward real space in strength not seen since the heresy. Their Primarch leads them, his power greater than it has ever been, his determination focused on pleasures that only the destruction of the Imperium can provide. The fall that began with a sword in an alien temple reaches its culmination. The pursuit of perfection that defined the Third Legion has become an endless hunger for excess that nothing can satisfy. And at the heart of the gathering storm, Fulgrim the Daemon Primarch contemplates the face of his brother Guilliman and smiles. The Phoenician has returned. The galaxy will never be the same. The nature of the Emperor's children in the 41st millennium defies easy description, for they have become something that transcends the categories by which the Imperium understands its enemies. They are not merely Chaos Space Marines, not simply traitors who turned against the Emperor 10,000 years ago. They have evolved, if that word can be applied to spiritual corruption, into something uniquely terrible. Their existence is defined by a single overwhelming drive, the pursuit of sensation in all its infinite variety. This pursuit has reshaped them physically in ways that would horrify their original gene sires. The nervous systems of Emperor's children have been rewired by millennia of chaos exposure. Their capacity for sensation expanded far beyond natural limits. Pain and pleasure have become indistinguishable, each stimulus feeding into an experience that transcends simple categorization. A blade wound provides the same rush as a narcotic high. The screams of enemies bring euphoria equivalent to the most refined musical performance. Their senses have been enhanced and multiplied beyond counting. Some warriors possess dozens of eyes scattered across their bodies, each one perceiving different spectra of light. Others have developed ears capable of hearing frequencies that would drive unaugmented humans insane. Still others can taste the emotional states of nearby beings, their tongues flickering like serpents to sample the psychic residue that all conscious creatures leave behind. The colors they wear have changed to match their altered perceptions. The purple and gold of their great crusade heraldry has given way to bright pinks and blacks, colors garish enough to register on senses deadened by 10 millennia of excess. Their armor is decorated with symbols of Slanesh, sigils that pulse with a warp energy and whisper promises to those who gaze upon them. Noise Marines form the elite of many Emperor's Children warbands, their sonic weapons capable of destruction that conventional armaments cannot match. The Blastmasters and doom sirens that they wield produce sounds that liquefy flesh, shatter ceramite, and break the sanity of any who hear them. These warriors have replaced their auditory organs entirely with mechanical augmetics that protect them from their own weapons, while enhancing their appreciation of the symphonies of destruction they create. The gene seed of the Emperor's children has become so corrupted that natural reproduction is effectively impossible. New recruits must be created through the genetic manipulation techniques that Fabius Bile has refined over millennia, or stolen from loyalist chapters whose gene seed remains pure. Each new Emperor's children is a triumph of biotechnical sorcery, a being crafted from stolen genetic material and shaped by chaos energies into something that would disgust its original donor. Combat for the Emperor's children is not a means to an end, but an end in itself. The sensations of battle provide stimulation that nothing else can match. The adrenaline surge of mortal danger combined with the aesthetic pleasure of perfectly executed violence. They fight as performers rather than soldiers, each engagement a work of art designed to maximize the experience for warrior and victim alike. Their victims suffer in ways that defy description. The Emperor's children do not simply kill. They transform death into an extended experience, prolonging the process of termination to extract every possible sensation from the event. Prisoners taken by Emperor's children warbands face fates that make clean death seem like mercy. Their bodies converted into instruments for producing sounds or sensations that please their captors. Even other Chaos Space Marines find the Emperor's children disturbing. The World Eaters are mindless in their fury, their devotion to Khorne reducing them to simple killing machines. The Death Guard accept suffering with stoic determination, their worship of Nurgle providing a philosophical framework for their existence. The Thousand Sons pursue knowledge and power through sorcery, their goals comprehensible, if not sympathetic. But the Emperor's children pursue sensation for its own sake, without reference to any greater purpose or meaning. Their excess serves nothing except the momentary experience of excess itself, an endless cycle of stimulation and satiation that leads nowhere and means nothing. This nihilism makes them unpredictable allies and terrifying enemies. Emperor's children warbands will betray agreements without warning if betrayal offers more interesting sensations than cooperation. They will abandon campaigns that have achieved their objectives if boredom threatens, or pursue objectives long past the point of strategic value if the experience remains stimulating. Their actions follow no logic except the logic of pleasure, and that logic is incomprehensible to minds not similarly corrupted. The warbands themselves display enormous variety in their specific obsessions. Some focus on martial perfection, their pursuit of combat excellence twisted into an eternal competition to achieve the most elegant kill, the most artistic violence, the most aesthetically pleasing slaughter. They challenge champions of every faction to single combat, not from any sense of honor, but from the desire to experience the unique sensations that each opponent provides. Others have turned to artistic expression in its most depraved forms, creating works that use human bodies as raw material and suffering as their medium. Their galleries contain pieces that would drive viewers insane, expressions of creativity so warped by chaos that they transcend the boundary between art and atrocity. Still others pursue chemical or biological modification, their flesh laboratories for experiments in sensation enhancement. They have developed drugs that would kill unaugmented humans with a single dose, stimulants that rewrite neural pathways to create entirely new forms of pleasure, and surgical modifications that add sensory capabilities impossible in nature. All of them serve Slaanesh, whether they acknowledge that service explicitly or not. The Dark Prince of Chaos feeds on excess in all its forms, drawing power from every sensation experienced by its devotees. The Emperor's children have become perfect vessels for this feeding, their entire existence dedicated to generating the experiences that nourish their god. In return, Slaanesh provides them with the gifts that make their existence possible, the mutations that enhance their senses, the warp energies that power their weapons, the demonic allies that fight alongside them in battle, all flow from their patron's favor. This relationship has bound the Emperor's children to chaos more completely than any other traitor legion. The World Eaters could theoretically exist Without Khorne's influence, their rage a natural outgrowth of their flawed gene seed. The Death Guard might survive Nurgle's abandonment, their resilience innate rather than granted. But the Emperor's children cannot exist without Slaanesh. Their very nature has become dependent on the flow of warp energy that sustains their enhanced senses and modified flesh. They are creatures of chaos in the most literal sense, their continued existence proof of their god's power and favor. This is what the pursuit of perfection has become. This is where the quest for excellence has led. The Emperor's children, who once bore the Palatine Aquila as a mark of the Emperor's personal favor, now serve a different master entirely, and they would not have it any other way. The Indomitus era dawns on a galaxy transformed by the opening of the Great Rift, and the Emperor's children prepare for a war that will dwarf anything they have attempted since the heresy itself. Fulgrim's return has electrified the scattered warbands of the Third Legion, drawing them together in numbers not seen for millennia. From the Eye of Terror and the Maelstrom, from hidden bases scattered across the galaxy, and demon worlds that exist outside normal space, the Emperor's children converge on their Primarch's banner. The force that gathers is immense by any standard. Tens of thousands of noise marines bring their sonic weapons to the muster, their blast masters and doom sirens capable of reducing fortifications to rubble with concentrated sound. Each warband contributes its champions and specialists, warriors who have survived 10,000 years of the Long War through skill, luck, and the favor of Slaanesh. Demon engines accompany the mortal warriors, machines powered by bound demons whose hunger for sensation matches that of their Emperor's children masters. Sonic dreadnoughts lumber alongside defilers and mauler fiends, their weapons augmented with the same technology that makes noise marines so devastating. Most terrible of all are the demonic hosts that Fulgrim can summon at will. As a Daemon Primarch, Fulgrim commands the loyalty of countless Slaaneshi entities, keepers of secrets. The greater demons of the Dark Prince answer his call with enthusiasm. Daemonites in their thousands flow from the warp at his command, their seductive forms concealing killing power that has claimed the lives of countless Imperial warriors. The army that marches beneath Fulgrim's banner represents the greatest concentration of Slaaneshi power since the Siege of Terra itself. Against this force stands the Imperium of Man, weakened by the opening of the Great Rift, but galvanized by Guilliman's return. The Lord of Ultramar has not forgotten his brother, has not forgiven the wound that kept him frozen for 10 millennia. The scar on his throat serves as a constant reminder of their last confrontation, a wound that aches whenever he contemplates the war to come. Guilliman has prepared for this moment in ways that only a Primarch could manage. The Indomitus Crusade has deployed forces across the galaxy, establishing defensive positions and offensive capabilities that can respond to threats from any direction. The primary space marines that Khor created during Guilliman's long sleep provide fresh strength to chapters depleted by centuries of attrition. When Fulgrim moves against the Imperium, Guilliman will be ready. The strategic picture that emerges from intelligence gathered by the Inquisition and the Officio Assassinorum suggests multiple potential theaters of conflict. The Emperor's children have shown interest in several sectors, their raids testing Imperial defenses while gathering slaves and resources for the greater campaign to come. Ultramar itself may be a target, the realm that Guilliman built and that bears his name. An assault on the 500 worlds would force the Lord of Ultramar to choose between his crusade and his homeland, dividing his attention at a critical moment. Terra remains the ultimate prize, the throne world of the Imperium and the seat of the Emperor himself. Fulgrim participated in the original Siege of Terra, and his memories of that campaign inform his current planning. He knows the palace's weaknesses, understands the psychology of its defenders, and possesses knowledge that 10,000 years of modification have not entirely invalidated. But the Emperor's children may not move directly against such obvious targets. Their nature makes them unpredictable, their actions driven by whims that transcend strategic calculation. Fulgrim might choose to attack a seemingly insignificant world simply because the sensations available there appeal to him, or bypass heavily defended targets in favor of more pleasurable alternatives. This unpredictability is itself a weapon, forcing the Imperium to spread its defenses across countless potential theaters, rather than concentrating strength at obvious choke points. The coming war will be unlike anything the 41st millennium has witnessed. The Emperor's children do not fight for territory or resources in any conventional sense. They fight for experience, for sensation, for the momentary highs that combat provides, and the extended pleasures that victory enables. Their objectives shift with their moods. Their strategies evolve based on factors that Imperial commanders cannot predict or understand. Facing such an enemy requires abandoning the assumptions that govern normal warfare. Guilliman understands this to the extent that any being can understand the thought processes of creatures so corrupted by chaos. He has studied records of Emperor's children engagements throughout the Long War, identified patterns in their apparently random behavior, developed countermeasures that account for their unique psychology. But no amount of preparation can fully prepare for Fulgrim himself. The Daemon Primarch represents a category of threat that the Imperium has rarely faced and never defeated. His power exceeds that of any mortal warrior. His experience spans the entire history of the Imperium, and his connection to Slaanesh provides resources that seem infinite from a human perspective. The confrontation between Guilliman and Fulgrim, when it comes, will determine the fate of sectors, perhaps the fate of the Imperium itself. Two Primarchs, brothers in gene if not in spirit, will meet on a battlefield that has not yet been chosen. The loyal son of the Emperor will face the most corrupted of the traitors, the avenging son against the demon prince, righteousness against excess. The outcome of that confrontation cannot be predicted with certainty, but one thing is clear. The Emperor's children have returned in force, and the galaxy will tremble beneath their advance. The pursuit of perfection that began on Kimos has led through 10,000 years of corruption to this moment. The fall from grace that started with a silver sword in an alien temple reaches its culmination in a war that will reshape the galaxy. The Emperor's children march to war, and Fulgrim the Phoenician leads them. May the Emperor protect those who stand in their path. The journey that brings the Emperor's children to this moment spans 10,000 years and countless light years. A fall from grace so complete that its beginning seems almost impossible to remember. Once, the Third Legion stood as the finest warriors in the Imperium. Their dedication to excellence drove them to achievements that other legions could only envy. Their culture celebrated beauty and artistry alongside martial prowess. Their Primarch embodied the ideal of perfection made flesh, a being who had risen from nothing on a dying world to become one of the most powerful figures in human history. The Palatine Aquila that they wore marked them as the Emperor's own, the only legion permitted to bear his personal symbol. This honor carried weight that transcended mere heraldry. It declared to the galaxy that the Emperor's children represented the pinnacle of what the Legiones Astartes could achieve. But perfection is a dangerous goal. The pursuit of excellence that defined the Third Legion contained within it the seeds of their destruction. When perfection becomes an obsession, when anything less than the absolute best seems like failure, the mind becomes vulnerable to promises of shortcuts, of enhancements, of ways to transcend the limitations that nature imposes. The layer blade offered such promises. The demon within that silver sword spoke to Fulgrim's deepest desires. The hunger for perfection that drove every aspect of his existence. It did not need to lie, did not need to make obviously false claims. It simply pointed out the limitations of conventional methods and suggested alternatives that seemed reasonable in the moment. Perfection through transformation rather than discipline. Excellence achieved by rewriting the rules rather than mastering them. Beauty found in excess rather than restraint. These suggestions seemed harmless at first, minor deviations from doctrine that would be corrected once their utility was proven. But each deviation opened the door to greater deviations. Each compromise made the next compromise easier to accept. By the time anyone recognized what was happening, the corruption had spread too far to stop. The Maraviglia killed whatever remained of the Third Legion's original character. The warriors who emerged from that night of sonic sorcery were no longer the Emperor's children in any meaningful sense. They had become something else, creatures defined by their hunger for sensation, rather than their pursuit of excellence. The Istvan system witnessed the final destruction of their former identity. Brothers who had served together for decades murdered each other in virus-shrouded cities and on black volcanic sand. The bonds of Legion unity shattered beyond any possibility of repair. The Dropsite massacre proved that the Emperor's children would stop at nothing in pursuit of their new desires. The murder of Ferrus Manus by Fulgrim's own hand demonstrated that even the most sacred bonds of brotherhood meant nothing compared to the demon's will. The siege of terror revealed the depths to which they had fallen. Warriors who had once fought for the future of humanity instead preyed upon the very civilians they had sworn to protect. The pleasures they extracted from terror's population served no strategic purpose, advanced no military objective. They were simply expressions of the hunger that now defined every Emperor's children's existence. 10,000 years in the eye of terror refined this hunger into something that transcends simple vice. The Emperor's children have become specialists in sensation, connoisseurs of experience, artists whose medium is suffering and whose canvas is flesh. Their gene seed carries this corruption forward to each new generation. Such as they are, every Emperor's children created since the heresy inherits the accumulated weight of 10 millennia of excess, their souls pre-corrupted by the very process that gives them life. There is no redemption possible for the Third Legion. This is perhaps the most important truth to understand about the Emperor's children. Unlike some traitor legions, whose members might theoretically be reclaimed through extraordinary intervention, the Emperor's children have passed beyond any possibility of salvation. Their souls belong to Slaanesh in a way that is both literal and irrevocable. The Dark Prince has marked them, claimed them, bound them to its service through chains forged of pleasure and sealed with 10,000 years of devotion. No power in the galaxy can break those chains. Even death provides no escape. The souls of Emperor's children who fall in battle go directly to Slaanesh, their eternal existence spent in the Dark Prince's realm. There they experience pleasures and torments beyond mortal comprehension, their essences feeding the very god who claimed them. Some might call this fate a punishment, but the Emperor's children themselves would disagree. They have found what they were always seeking, in a twisted sense. The perfection that eluded them as servants of the Emperor has been achieved as servants of Slaanesh. They are perfect expressions of excess, flawless exemplars of hedonism, paragons of pleasure and pain united. This is what perfection looks like when chaos defines the terms. As the 41st millennium gives way to the 42nd, the Emperor's children stand poised to prove once again that they are the truest servants of Slaanesh in all existence. Their Primarch has returned, their numbers have gathered, and their hunger drives them toward a war that will make the heresy itself seem like a prelude. The lessons of their fall remain relevant to every servant of the Emperor. Excellence is noble, but obsession is dangerous. The pursuit of perfection, when it becomes an end rather than a means, opens the soul to influences that no armor can deflect. The line between dedication and corruption is thinner than most warriors care to admit. The Emperor's children crossed that line 10,000 years ago. They have never looked back. And now they return to a galaxy that has never stopped paying for their fall. In the darkness between stars, Fulgrim the Daemon Primarch contemplates the pleasures that await. His serpentine form coils through dimensions that human perception cannot encompass. His 4 arms hold weapons that have drunk the blood of demigods. His beautiful, terrible face wears an expression of anticipation that would drive mortals mad if they could truly see it. The Phoenician has risen from the ashes of his own humanity. What emerges is something that the Third Legion's founders would not recognize. What emerges is perfection after a fashion. What emerges is damnation made flesh, excess given form, corruption elevated to an art. The Emperor's children have returned, and the galaxy will know their glory.